Good evening or good morning, depending on you're watching this, everybody. Welcome back to Hoops HD, our continuing 2021-2022 preseason coverage. This is one of our
Woohoo!
favorite nights of the preseason, and because we are simultaneously recording four separate podcasts all at the same time tonight.
Oh, yeah. You can watch them all because I believe we've got them grouped into the same post. You could hit play on all of them and watch them all at the same time. Do you ever watch multiple games at the same time? Like you got 3 or 4 screens going? Well, here you can watch multiple podcasts.
I think Dave, if you actually hit play at all four of them at the same time and do it backwards, you will get a recipe for chocolate chip cookies or something like that. Is that?
No? Well, chocolate and peanut butter.
Okay. Chocolate peanut butter cookies. All right. I'm your host, Chad Sherwood. John Titel to my side. Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org below me. Kind of diagonal across from me is David Griggs. This podcast is the American. You look for the Atlantic 10, look down below. You look for the Mountain West, even further below. West Coast, way down below. And the other conferences, try the season preview tab up top there on the website. But we're going to get right into it here with the American Athletic Conference. As Rocco, let me start off with you here. We had a team for this conference in the Final Four last year. That's Kelvin Sampson's Houston team. How about them look? How are they looking this year for you?
Well, I think, you look at what happened with Houston last year. They were solid in the metrics all year. I think a lot of people soured on them in February when they lost to East Carolina. And somewhat surprised, I think our mock committee actually had them a 3 seed. At the end of our process, they ended up getting the 2. The metrics won out, and survived that scare from Rutgers and got to the Final Four with a bunch of bloodshed in their way to get them there, playing Oregon State of all teams in the Elite Eight. But they got there, and I think everybody, for the most part, respected the way they got there. They relentlessly attacked the glass on the offensive rebounds. It's almost like they planned for their second offensive shot more than their first, because they just fire something up and somebody goes and gets the rebound. Now, I do know with, one of the big glue guys, Quentin Grimes was their big scorer, but even more of a glue guy, Dejan Jarreau. He was doing everything for them last year. That's going to be a big role to fill this year. I think they do have the horses to do a lot of that. Fabian White's back and Marcus Sasser, and then you add in a Kyler Edwards, a proven Big 12 talented player. A couple layers with Josh Carlton in the middle coming over from UConn, and Reggie Chaney back. So the roster's there. Kelvin Sampson's there. The style's not going to change. They're going to be super annoying to play for anybody. And I think they're a solid top 15 team, very safe bet to probably land in either 4 or 5 seed territory.
Yeah. Go ahead, David. Yeah.
I was going to just kind of get some opinions on this. Looking at Houston as a program, they've kind of only recently become a top 25 caliber program. I mean, it seemed like they had long droughts from the NCAA tournament. When Kelvin Sampson took over, he had a lot of rebuilding to do. Granted, I'm not going to say they don't have a history at all. They certainly do. Elvin Hayes in the 60s and 70s, and then Phi Slama Jama after that. But this program had been asleep for forever. And I remember when they got to that round of 32, took Michigan to the wall, lost on a 3-quarter shot. I remember my thought was, oh, man, did Houston just miss their chance to get back into the national consciousness? Well, I think the answer to that is no. They've been to a Sweet 16. They finished highly ranked the next year, went to a Final Four last year. But is this a program that's going to continue to play at a top 25 level this year, next year, and sort of moving forward, or are they going to kind of come back down to earth? What do you guys think?
John, you want to field that?
Sure. I mean, if you look at Kelvin's track record, he lost 19 games in his first year in Houston back in 2015. Since then, it's been 20-win seasons. The last 3 seasons have seen a 28-win season last year and a 33-win season in 2019. So I'm a believer that he can win 25 games on average every single year. Rocco, agreed?
Agreed. Yeah. If you look at the KenPom numbers, I was actually just going to put it in our chat. Last 4 seasons in a row, 18, 12, 14, and 5th. So there you go. I mean, the model for consistency is there. And guess what? One thing we haven't mentioned yet, these guys are going to the Big 12 soon. So, the competition is going to get harder there. But I think they're as poised and ready for it, both financially, program stability. As far as Kelvin Sampson can take them, this is not a situation where he wants to go anywhere else. And keep in mind, his son, Kellen, is on the staff and ready to probably take over at some point. So it's a really exciting time down there in H-Town.
Yeah, I just want to throw one other name out there also, Rocky. You're going through the players of the team. Keep an eye on Taze Moore, also came over from Santa Barbara. I know it's a step up, but he could be a Giroux type of guy. Yeah, I mean he could fill in that type of role. So
Absolutely.
But I agree with you. I'm really high on this Houston team this year. The end of last season, there were 3 teams that cut down nets as champions to end their seasons. Baylor obviously won the national championship. Pepperdine won the CBI, that anybody even knew. But John, the NIT champions were Penny Hardaway's Memphis team. How do they look to you this year?
Great. The schedule is a little tough. They get Vatech. They get a couple of SEC teams in Alabama. A trio. Half the SEC: Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Tennessee. Maybe they are transferring, and we just don't know about it. Luckily, they bring back a lot of players. Great backcourt of Alex Lomax and Lester Quinones and Landers Nolly II, and Tyler Harris. Great backcourt. And for the front court, they bring in a couple of huge top 5, top 10 recruits in Amoni Bates and Jalen Duran. So I think Penny's got this going in the right direction. And if they need to scrimmage, they can go against Rasheed Wallace and see how they do against him.
Is it true that he brought Larry Brown in as assistant coach this year as well? There you go. I mean, I don't know where they dusted him off from, but David, but that's kind of been the question with Penny is not can he recruit, but can he win on the court?
Well, yeah, they had NBA talent last year and won the NIT. And that is my big question too. There's you just said the talent is absolutely there, but is it going to gel, and is it going to be, are they going to be top 10 good, or because they certainly have the talent to do that, or are they going to miss the NCAA tournament again? Is it going to be one of those cases to where sometimes they can take a top 10 team to the wall and even beat them, and then in the next game they're losing to a mid-level team in conference like an SMU or somebody like that? Are they going to be inconsistent like they were a lot last year? I am sold on Memphis's talent. I am not sold that they will win the league. I still like Houston more than them. And I'm not saying that I'm not expecting Memphis to miss the tournament, but if they're in the NIT again, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't be the first time that Memphis has started off highly ranked and then crashed into a mountain and not played out.
Yeah, I kind of see Memphis could be like a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. I could see them missing the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I am with them.
I think we're both in the same spot. Rocco, you got any thoughts on them?
Yeah, I agree that the outcome range is tremendously huge in the negative direction. And then, of course, they could get all the way to number 1 with this type of talent. I mean, you basically have 2 6-star recruits. I know 6 stars don't exist, but I mean, that's how immense the talent is between Duran and Imani Bates. But that also, I think, carries more risk. We see players of this caliber that were good enough to go to the G League or NBL or whatever all the options are, overtime league. What happens? Let's just be honest here. Penny Hardaway has a 1-4 record against Tulsa. He's lost to Tulsa in every season. That's just a middle of the pack team.
Frank Heath is 4-1 against Penny Hardaway.
Yeah, so it's like moments like those are going to happen in the season. How will this team respond? How will the maturity level respond? There's also key questions I have on the court, which are, Penny Hardaway teams have not demonstrated yet valuing possessions. There's so many times I've watched Memphis. I watch a lot of their games where they just take stupid shots. They're not valuing the basketball like some of the sound teams do. Houston's not a good example because they love offensive rebounding, but I think you guys understand my point. I think some of that's why Larry Brown, I think, was brought in. And that's, I think, the key. Like, can he really kind of take over a lot of those X's and O's responsibilities? Let Penny do his thing. Let Rasheed Wallace get fired up and maybe get a technical foul every once in a while, and see if it all works.
David, last year's regular season champions in the American was actually Wichita State, although very strangely, very unbalanced schedules. They played 13 games to Houston, 17 games last season, all that. But regular season champions, Tyson Etienne is back, 4 out of 5 starters back. Alterique Gilbert is gone though, so they don't have a point guard. But what do you think about Wichita State?
I like them. I know I kind of say that every year, but I mean, there's been a lot of the times where we've kind of seen this situation where they start off unranked. There's not a whole lot of praise, and they end up being a surprise team. I don't see how you can not like this team based on all the talent that they have coming back and just kind of their history. I could see them having a really big year. I have a lot more confidence in them and probably fewer questions about them or concerns about them than I have about the team we just talked about. And again, that's not to say that I think their talent is anything like Memphis's, but I think Wichita is going to have a really good year this year. I think they're inside the bubble.
They did not get the auto bid last year. Barely made the field in the first four. John, are you with David?
I'm a little nervous about this team losing guys like Tariq Gilbert. I understand that Etienne is great, and they bring back other guys like Dexter Dennis, and they bring in Joe Pleasant from Abilene Christian, who I love a lot because his dad played for New England Patriots. And I mean, there's a lot to like. The schedule's tough. They play a couple different Big 12 teams. They have 2 games in Vegas, which I will be at in 3 weeks. I can't wait to see them in person. I just think that they might have lost a little bit, and they're not going to sneak up on anybody this year.
As a defensive team, I think they're really good too.
They need a point guard, David.
They need one of those. That would help, but I think that they got quite a few pieces. They do need a point guard though.
Rocco, one other team for this conference was in the postseason last year in the NIT, at least, was SMU. I think they're a fascinating this team this year, though, with Kendrick Davis, who should be incredible, and then you bring in the Weathers brothers, among other players.
Yeah, Kendrick Davis, big time player, confident, proven scorer. He's a guy that is going to lead. There's been moments in SMU games where the rest of the team is kind of slugging along, and he just continues to pick them up and elevate them with his caliber of play. What I'm trying to say is he's even keel. He never gets too low and remains in that space where he can dominate. Really impressive player. But I think the question is a lot of these pieces they brought in. I was a really pretty big fan of Zach Nuttall at Sam Houston in the Southland. But can he
player of the year in that conference last year?
Yeah, player of the year. So I think the thing that SMU needs the most is perimeter shooting, especially losing some of the guys they did. And he can fill that void, but it's going to come down to can they space the floor appropriately? A lot of times last year you saw Davis and guys like Ty Jolly, in the last 2 years, driving and not dishing as much, and I think some of that cost them late in games. So we'll see. But I think the potential is there to get up to a tournament caliber. It's just hard to say that right now.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Weathers was a ton of fun to watch at Texas Southern as an under the radar guy last year.
Absolutely.
His brother Marcus averaged over 15 points at Duquesne last year. Tristan Clark coming over from Baylor, ex-Baylor player there too. You got a fascinating roster here. John, do you think this is a tournament contender?
I kind of like them because all their good players are seniors, and you know how I love seniors as opposed to freshmen. Love Tim Jankovic as a coach. He was a 3-time academic All-American, and he was an assistant to, ironically, Larry Brown. I can't wait to see them go against each other. Manageable schedule, a couple tough non-conference games in the Ducks and the Seminoles. But you're talking about Michael Weathers. He was the conference tourney MVP, and Zach Nuttall was the conference player of the year. He's not bringing in good transfers. He's bringing in great transfers.
I think it's gonna be, if this team comes together, they could be dangerous by the end of the season. It is spreading all these players in there. David, you had a comment on them?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say I agree with that. And the other thing I like about it is when you look at the progress they've made, they've improved about incrementally going back the last 3 years, and I think that that's going to continue this year. I could see them making the field.
I mean, those were the 4 teams that were in the postseason last year. Beyond those 4. There's a couple of teams I think are a little bit interesting. Rocco, I want to start asking you about a team that I'm really keeping an eye on here is Johnny Dawkins UCF team that just has everybody back off of a pretty disappointing year, but everybody back.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I like the defensive makeup. I think CJ Walker is one of the best defenders in the entire conference. Mahan, I mean, he's kind of the key in some ways because when UCF, early, I think it was last year, they beat Florida State, big upset, and they dominated. Mahan went off. He had a huge November and then disappeared in conference. Darius Perry, there's a guy that's got tons of potential, good numbers, but like I think this comes down to Johnny Dawkins, just to be truthful. It's a talented team. I think Jean coming over from UNLV, it fills a big need in the middle. He had great Mountain West numbers, 7.5 rebounds a game, almost 10 points a game. So it really just comes down to getting the pieces to fit. We say this a lot. It's an old enough team and a lot of potential, but I don't think it's as good as the Taco Fall year team. So is it going to be enough? I don't know. It's close.
Really? You think? I think they're decent. I don't think they're close to the tournament. I think they're solid NIT. You think they can play their way into it?
I think solid NIT, but I mean, if you're in that 50 to 60 range, and we're saying top 45-ish, I'll go. You're only like 2 big wins away from being.
Okay.
I'd argue that if you are solid in IT, it means you are an NCAA tournament bubble team also. So
for at least most of the year, yeah.
John, beyond the teams we spoke, is there somebody specific you were looking at this season?
So I'm going to look at David's good friend Frank Heath down in Tulsa. Back for his 8th season. Last year, he started 8-4. He beat Houston and Cincinnati. He swept Memphis. I was starting to become a believer. Then they lost 8 of their final 11 to finish with a losing record. He did lose a few key seniors this year, including leading scorer Brandon Rashel. He does return the conference 6th man of the year in Darian Jackson. And he welcomes back Jariah Horn, who spent a couple of years in Tulsa before making the tournament last year with Colorado, and now he comes back. The schedule is fascinating. They have a pair of second weekend NCAA tourney teams from last year. They convinced the Beavers to fly to the Midwest from Oregon State after making the Elite 8, and they only have to drive 20 minutes south to face Oral Roberts, who made the Sweet 16.
Wow. Yeah, those are 2, unusual second weekend.
They were second weekend teams.
They were.
David, there's a few teams we have discussion. Anybody else that you're specifically looking at, or should we just
yes.
not bother?
Well, a team that has my curiosity is Cincinnati. I think that it's safe to say that they were kind of a disappointment last year, surprisingly so, at least to me. I didn't think they'd be a tournament team, but I didn't think they'd end up in the shape that they were in by the end of the year with the coaching change and some, questions about like how he treated players and things like that. They hire Wes Miller, who is a fantastic coach, did a great job at UNC Greensboro. They have pieces back. And can Miller build something with what didn't gel last year? I just completely fell all over what I'm saying. But can he make happen this year what we thought was going to happen last year? And they could end up being one of those teams that's kind of a surprise. I'm not predicting them in the field and everything, but I think that they might be a lot better, noticeably better this year than they were last year.
I like hitting Koval down low there, but I think I'm in the John Titel first year coach camp on this team. Rocco, we haven't mentioned Temple, Tulane, South Florida, or East Carolina. Are any of them worth mentioning?
Well, I think Tulane and Temple are both intriguing to a degree. I do think this is Hunter's most talented and experienced team. I mean, which isn't saying a lot because Tulane's been at the bottom since he's been there. But I think it makes things a little interesting. I would like to see another step forward, at least get in the top 8, maybe as high as 6 if all things break right. And kind of similar for Temple, Aaron McKee's trying to get things going there. But I did notice last year, Khalif Battle really stepped up those last 4 games, averaged well over 20 a game in the last 4 when Damian Dunn went down. Now they've got both back healthy, plus a lot of nice pieces they added around them. Interested to see what they can do. But again, I'm thinking top 6, best case scenario, probably not close to a bid.
Well, here's a little stat for you on Temple. Should they have a losing season again this year, it'd be the 3rd straight for the first time in program history, 3rd straight losing season. So not good for Aaron McKee's future if that happens, I don't think.
Yeah, that's very probable. I will say this for Temple. They are members of the Big Five, and there is a member of the Big Five that is a Final Four candidate.
Okay. There you go. Okay. South Florida, I'm not expecting much from them. East Carolina was bad last year, and the best player is now playing for Virginia this year. That's not very good either. But what I'll do is run through each of you and give me your pick for your regular season champion. Tell me how many teams for this conference are going to make the field, and tell me other final thoughts about the conference. And John, why don't I start with you?
I think this is going to be pretty similar, but feel free to tell me if I'm wrong. So I'm setting the over-under at 2.5, and I'm taking the under. I think Houston and Memphis easily make it. I don't think anybody else does. I understand that if SMU gets hot later, Wichita State, like there's a chance, but I think it's going to be a 2-bid league. I think that Memphis is going to take it. It's hard to pick against a returning Final Four team, but I think that Penny's got something special going down there. And if there's anybody who knows how to get things done in a rebuild, it's Larry Brown. As far as a fun fact, I'm going to go with Tyson Etienne at Wichita State. His family is more amazing than anybody else's. So his mom was an Emmy-nominated makeup artist. His dad played basketball at Maryland. His uncle, Omari Hardwick's an award-winning actor. His cousin is DeAndre Jordan, and his godfather is Marcus Camby. This kid is like the most amazing family I've ever heard of.
It's amazing. Rocco, how about you?
Yeah, I'll agree with John on the standpoint that just 2 bids is all I see at this stage. Houston and Memphis. I will pick Houston to win the league just out of the pure dependability of what that program has become. Now, like I said, 4 straight years, top 20 Ken Palm, Final Four under their belt, enough coming back, plus some great additions. I think they're not going anywhere at the top. Memphis, as John said, with Larry Brown, all the upside. If it all comes together, they're through the roof, probably even competing for like 1 or 2 seed. However, all those other things we covered on the downside, the whole thing could fall apart, and that allows a team like Wichita, SMU, UCF, et cetera, to step up and maybe take a second spot. And I think this is the first real conference we've previewed where we got to talk about bid steals, because any of these teams win the conference tournament besides those 2, and it's probably coming down to that final Sunday in this league again. It's super intriguing. So they're going to stay in the, Wichita, SMU, UCF, for all intents and purposes, will be in the discussion for that purpose alone all the way till the final day.
You kind of stole my thought right there, Rocco. Is exactly what I was going to say. Is I'm with you with the 2 bids, Houston as a champion,
Wow.
Memphis, but I could see the 3rd bid. I could see those other 3 teams being in the bubble talk and probably not getting in, but I could also easily see a bid steal, especially if a team like SMU really starts to gel with these players as we get further in the season. David, you want to finish us off?
Yeah, I'm going to go with 3, but I also want to say that I'm a lot closer to 4 than I am to 2. Now, having said that, I also was picking lower from some of the power conferences than much of the rest of the panel. The way I see the top tier, Houston for sure. I like Wichita and SMU as well, and Memphis if the talent can gel. In looking at the rest of the league, I think UCF is NIT-ish. Cincinnati will be better than certainly everybody else, but maybe not as good as the 5 that are ahead of them. And then 7 through 12, it's the caliber, and you see this in all 4 leagues that we're going to be talking about, where the top of the league has top 25 teams and maybe even protected seeds and a Final Four team last year, but the bottom consists of teams that would not win the majority of the under the radar leagues. And I think that's what 7 through 12 is. Because those teams are so bad, I think those 4 will just collectively beat up on them. That's 14 wins that all 4 of those teams should get. And then they can beat up on each other and get the quality wins that way, especially if they're able to do something out of conference. Memphis has a lot of chances out of conference. So does Houston. I think that I could see 3 and maybe even 4 playing their way in.
Okay. We will see as things play out. But at that note, though, if you're looking for the Atlantic 10, the Mountain West or the West Coast, David, they're down below there somewhere.
They
right?
are. It's right down there.
Right down there. Rest of the conference is up there in the season preview, along with the exhibition games. But on behalf of Rocco Miller from Bracketeer.org, David Griggs, John Titel, I'm Chad Sherwood. Thanks for joining us. We'll be talking to you again real soon.